My name is Ashley Nicole, and the name of my company is SmugBeauty. And what we do over here is we incorporate our outside beauty, but our inside as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think that that's something that's needed within our culture today. I love the aspect of you kind of catering to that mental need and but also the physical appearance as well. What is at the value of Smug Beauty? What does it represent?
Well, we represent the whole person because I feel like a lot of beauty companies sort of just only focus on the cosmetic aspect of it. So what I wanted to do was find a way to incorporate my newfound spirituality into my business. And what I did was further explored what it means to me to be spiritual and to also be whole as a person. And with that comes, understanding the importance of mental health and self-care as well.
I think that that's sensational as a young woman to actually take time to uplift the kings and queens around you, and
Yeah.
especially with your products and your services. What are some of the ways that you've been able to stay creative during this time of chaos and uncertainty?
Well, one thing that I highly recommend that you all do as well is to stay grounded. Being out in nature as much as possible helps with grounding, but sometimes it's just taking the time to take like a soothing bath with, some rose petals and some bubbles. It's something that brings you back and gets you out of your mind so much because there is so much chaos going on outside in the news. Every time we turn on our phone, it's something new. So we have to take the time out for our own mental health just to have breaks from not only technology, but our day-to-day activities and things that we do.
Yes, yes, it's totally essential to take the time to take care of your mind, body, and soul. And I see that you definitely have some products that can help us do that. What are some of the products that you have been pushing recently that have been big sellers and some in some of the regions that you also market in?
Well, my big seller right now is the self love oil. That is one of the top things that I sell, just because I deal with a lot of women, consulting wise, that have a lot of past relationships and relationship trauma that they're trying to heal and grow from, so they don't continue to attract that energy to them. And I also have Arrasa con Todo, which is destroy everything. It's both a candle and an oil. So what it does is it helps remove all negative energy that may be in your vibration and also around you, including people. So it helps with identifying who is beneficial and who is not, as well as removing negativity from your vibration as well.
That's amazing, and I love the way how you broke that down because I can actually relate to some of those ways that I, want to either get the negative energy from around me or push positive vibrations within my environment. I wanted to ask you though, do you have any recommendations for any breathing techniques that could be of use or that could possibly help us with stress or anxiety?
Oh, yes, I definitely do. I actually learned one recently where you cross your dominant leg over the other leg. So if you're left-handed, you cross the left over the right, and you interlock your hands backwards and you lock them forwards like this. And you can do this in a sitting position. It really doesn't have to be, on the bed necessarily, but you can just sit and you can do like 5 things that you smell, 4 things that you see, 3 things that you hear, 2 things that you taste, which is kind of different if just sitting in the bed or something. And wait, what's the last sentence?
Um,
Touch. One thing that you touch. That I don't know why it slipped my mind, but things like that really help with calming the mind and making the mind more present. Because when we're dealing with all the stress that's going on, it's very hard for us to stay in the present moment, and that's where all the positive manifestations come from. staying in the moment and realizing where you are right now instead of worrying about the future or thinking about the past.
So true, so true. I think so many times we forget about what we're doing in the moment, and that tends to
Mhm.
predict or even have a great effect on the outcome of our situation. So I definitely wanted to kind of tap into the character of that person out there that's listening or watching and wants to know how that they can build that character with your products or services. How would you advise them to basically go about building that character that can attract positive vibrations and energy?
So one thing that I recommend is, well, it's easier said than done, especially right now, is staying positive. So one thing that you can do to help yourself stay positive is to realize where you are now compared to where you were previously. So if you think back to, a lot of the goals that you had previously, which ones are you sitting in right now and which ones have you accomplished? And just show gratitude for the things that you have right now, because not everybody is in your position, and some people are looking at your position as a blessed position while you're looking at someone else's position and thinking about how I can get there and things like that. So one thing that you can really do is try to stay present in your situation that you're in right now, and understanding that growth takes time, and you're never really alone on your growth journey as much as we feel alone. But staying present, understanding the importance of gratitude, and that way you can just manifest positively.
That is very good advice. And I think the important thing that I took away from that is gratitude. I think so many times we forget about how we are actually blessed to be in the situation that we're in, and we get
Yes.
caught up in not really actually taking the time to see how great of a situation that we might be in. So one of
Mhm.
the things that I definitely wanted to tap into is the business side of how you kind of use the mentality and the vibrations and the energy to basically create a business model that has been so successful.
So one thing that I had to do for myself was identify what exactly it was that I personally needed to work on. So when I had identified what I needed to work with, I also knew that I wasn't alone in that, and I can then share that product or that information with someone else. So one thing that I needed to work on was the importance of self-love, and not only the importance of self-care, but understanding that there's levels to self-love and self-care. I honestly don't think there is a high level to self-love. You can always love yourself a step further. And sometimes self-love is just taking a step back from work and like I said, being in the present moment, spending time with your family, spending time with your kids, and just enjoying the fact that you are alive today. Sometimes that's really what it is. And as far as removing negative energy, I was personally in a negative situation that I felt that I couldn't escape from, but with the power of the mind and the power of positive manifestations, and having gratitude for my situation and understanding the difference between what is benefiting me and what is detrimental to my growth, that's what better helps me gauge what was considered my negative and considered my positive. So I was able to remove people, places, and things that just were no longer a part of the life that I was trying to create for myself.
That that is amazing. It definitely is reassuring to see how you are actually turning your business model into a lifestyle that allows you to embrace the positivity and also the optimal, just mindset of basically overcoming your fears and being able to achieve at all costs. So I definitely wanted to tap into a component that you mentioned. You talked about self-love, and I think tough
Mhm.
love is great for our culture as Black kings and queens. How can we use self love as Black kings and queens to further the state of our basically communities or societies today, given the fact that there's so much chaos and uncertainty?
So with the Black community, there is, I guess I want to say odds against us, but it's really us against ourselves at the end of the day. So I personally feel like when you work on yourself and you work on your family, that model then inspires someone else. So with self-love in our community, what we have to recognize is, what ways are we damaging ourselves, and in what ways are we making excuses for this? Like whether it be smoking, drinking, you know, not really eating the best foods that are available, and making excuses for not living the best that we can. So we have things like entertainment and music that sort of just continue to perpetuate these ideas, continue to tell us what is good and what is bad. And we have to, as a society and as a people, step back and really recognize that some of these behaviors that we have been so conditioned to feel as normal are not really normal. They're more harmful than they are good. And in the long run, it's going to take us even longer to heal from it and understand that, you know, drinking every weekend is not really a form of self-love, if you know what I mean. Like the partying is nice, but every weekend it's not really, it's doing more harm than good. So sometimes we have to acknowledge our own faults in order to bring that self-love in, because once you remove the negativity, once you remove the negative mindset and the negative cycles that begin to spin, everything, your whole life turns around. It just completely turns around.
I love that perspective, and I think you tap into something that's so great within our Black community, is that the fact that when we look at stress and anxiety or depression, we look at some of the things that cause that, and it can be self-inflicted, and it can be
Mm-hmm.
some things that we can have control of. And you say so many great points about self-reflection, self-love, and just overall self-control of how you can basically treat your temple and your body and your soul as something that can be definitely put forth for the long haul, because obviously we want to treat our bodies like temples so that we can be alive to see our children's children. So how would you advise someone that's using your product today to basically affirm those positive vibes and that energy around them, to basically reinforce everything that they're doing, that they're instructed to do by you?
Well, I personally want to say that I feel that a lot of our, habits, our bad habits, come from unresolved trauma. So one thing that we have to do, like I said, is get that moment and that time to really self-reflect and really understand why we feel that this behavior is a placeholder for healing. So once you target and figure out exactly what it is that you personally need to work on for your own spiritual development, because everyone is different, everyone has different stressors and different triggers. So once you recognize that, one thing that you can do is use like Araza con todo, the candle. And what I recommend my customers do is literally write a letter as if you're writing a letter to yourself. And say, I am removing all negativity from my life. I'm removing all negativity from my body and from my spirit, and saying things like, I am moving on from the negativity that was in my past, and I'm looking forward to my future. So it's these sort of affirmations that you can use in combination with my candles and my oils, so you can create a life that you want. And once you remove the negativity, you have to, put positivity in the place, obviously. So because you don't want to attract that energy back at all. you want to uplift your vibration from this point on. So I do have things like prosperity oils that attract wealth and also attract business opportunities for entrepreneurs. And I also talked about my self-love oil. And I've actually dove into African spirituality. So I have a specific oil that is for the divine feminine called Oshun oil. And that oil is more so for a woman who is she's like a woman who is a warrior, but she is sweet as honey at the same time. So it's for the versatile woman who not only is a businesswoman, but she is a woman with a soft side as well.
That's dope, and I like the way that you kind of break down different aspects of the products and allow us to see how it's forming and how it's evolving over time. What are some of your goals and aspirations for the rest of 2020?
So for 2020, I want to continue to inspire women like myself, and being someone from, who is a dancer. So being in that industry, I've seen a lot of people who are not necessarily looking for something new, but I see them fighting for a positive life and a better life. So I want to better open up and explain my side of everything that I've been through, just so, women who are in that situation who feel like, dancing is the only way out and it's the only thing that you can do to make a lot of money. And, TV shows and music really don't help, but they really encourage that lifestyle itself. I really want to show them that there are ulterior ways to get the bag, in a sense. And
Yes.
there's different ways that you can go about, carrying yourself in a somewhat sexual manner, but still having that self-respect to be able to be respected in the business field as well. So I definitely want to encourage a balance. I'm not saying negate, your root chakra at all, but have a balance between your root and your crown. So the balance of the higher self and the lower self is definitely what I want to encourage women to explore more of.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate that. I know for a fact that when I first got in touch with you, we had talked about some of the ways that we wanted to collaborate and ultimately create some dope content. And I had heard your story and I was shocked and amazed by how resilient you were to basically continue grinding and continue hustling. And I can see it in your character and I can see it in your business model and just the woman that you embrace. And I definitely appreciate that. What is some advice that you would give a young woman that might be, exotic dancer right now or video vixen that's looking to get into a different industry because they have a son or a daughter that's looking up to them and they don't want them to see this side of them or just want to do something different?
One thing I would recommend is to really explore what made you the most happiest that you don't really want to judge yourself on. What made you happy and what had you the most satisfied before you got into that industry? Because sometimes we have passions and we have all of these dreams and aspirations, but we allow other people to tell us that they are not achievable, and then we tell ourselves it's not achievable, and then we spiral into this thought pattern that dancing is the only perceived way out. So one thing I recommend is exploring your hobbies, exploring what actually makes you the most happy. If it's drawing or painting or even writing itself, like I know so many like people who have been out of the industry, but people who started off as dancers who are just the most creative people I've ever met. But they don't really feel comfortable expressing that to the world because the only way they were celebrated was when they were taking their clothes off, if you understand what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
it's hard to fulfill your passions and go towards your passions when the only time you get recognition is when you're naked on camera. So one thing I would highly recommend is, I don't want to demonize anyone who does that. I just want to say, further explore what makes you happy, and don't feel shame or don't feel like it's not good enough, because someone is always watching and always paying attention. And somebody out there is going to appreciate your art and your talent as much as you do.
Definitely, definitely. And I can definitely say that just from watching you, just seeing how you've been able to not only symbolize what is professional, but what is also sensational in the way that you kind of transform from industry to industry. I think that you're so multi-talented and multi-dimensional that it can ultimately lead to a place where you're like clear mentally, you're free spiritually, and you're also liberated from what you think you need in terms of validation. Because in terms of like seeing how your business model has like flourished throughout the last couple months, I've seen like you go from lows to highs and just continue to have a smile on your face. So I really appreciate that. And
And thank
I
you.
really